Yo, what's up? Another episode of the Cyber Gangster slash Cyber Mace Fitness. I'm gonna go ahead and teach you guys another question that I got. What is the most valuable skill to acquire, and why is it your most valuable skill? All right, so the most valuable skills. There's a lot of different things you can acquire, but you gotta look at what is a necessity in the world. Whenever I look at a skill set, figure out what is something that people cannot do without. There's a couple main ones. Building, so construction, infrastructure, engineering, be able to plan and map out how to build things. Incredibly valuable because we're always going to need people building things because as the world changes, people change and we need updates to everything. So if you know how to basically construct houses, construct buildings, make cars, anything engineering based, A1 valuable skill to learn. Because without builders, there is nothing. Second thing I would say is anything that has to do with energy. So whether it be solar, wind, oil, water, hydro, anything that has to do with the necessities of being able to harness energy and be able to transport it, get into that, you'll never be broke because that's always going to be a necessity for human beings. We always got to have some type of way to transport and obtain energy. Third would be writing and communication and teaching or education. If you can educate people, and that could be either through communication or through writing, whatever form you protect, whatever particular medium, you're A1 because the ability to teach people is how societies get better and grow in time. So as you begin to learn a skill set that's maybe an essential skill set, if you could teach that to people, invaluable. Simply invaluable because, like I said, we always need more educators. And when I say teach, I don't necessarily mean going to the school system, but you can educate people in your own way. Like if you're a welder and you have a hard skill set, you know how to weld, you're a master welder. There's so much more money in being able to teach more people how to weld than there is actually welding. And you could touch more lives because then you could actually build a school which creates more welders, then you can employ those other welders to do work or labor for you. And since you are the master, people trust you, and they trust your insight to be able to teach other people how to be able to do that said skill. Writing is also valuable because at the end of the day, the ability for people to read and take information in, writing will always be the number one source, maybe outside like personal talking to people or video. So if you learn how to speak well, if you learn how to communicate, super valuable simply because we all got to learn how to talk to people, man. If you can't talk to nobody, you can't communicate, you're not going anywhere in this life. I don't care how good you are at anything. If you can't explain why what you do is so important, you're kind of fucked. Just the nature of the situation. So when we get into these skill set, I mean, all skills are important. It's all about what you can acquire. But the greatest skill set, because those are all infinitely broad. There's so many different skills you can learn. They're all going to be valuable. But what the most valuable skill set truly is your ability to learn. See, learning is a skill set. And most people never get very far in life because they don't know how to learn. And I know that sounds counter to like, what the hell are you talking about learning? Well, let me break this down. Learning comes in pretty much like 4 phases. You have the basic struggle phase of understanding just the fundamentals and the vocabulary of whatever said skill you're learning. Because if you don't understand the vocabulary, then you're kind of like just stuck in the water. So one of the things I learned, because I majored in biology, the hardest aspect of biology is simply understanding what these terms are, what they mean, and how they're supposed to be used in the context of the entire scheme of biology. And see, once you understand the vocabulary of a particular skill, then you move on into the implementation of the skill. What basically is like you can follow instructions to be able to do what you're being told or be able to follow the instructions. So say, for example, if I'm an electrician, I learn all the terms and terminology for electricity. I learn everything about that. Then I have to understand how to actually do instructions that give me the ability to be able to do those things. And that's really where the hardest learning curve, I think, comes. Well, actually, no, I'll say vocabulary. Vocabulary is probably the hardest one. But it's pretty easy to follow the instructions. Like, okay, go do what you're told. Go lay this much wire. Or go fix this pipe. Fix this particular part of the car. Oil change, blah, blah, blah. And then the third part of learning is understanding how to implement when things don't go right. See, that's a very difficult aspect because nothing that humans produce is ever going to be exact, because humans are inexact. We're flawed by nature, so it's very difficult to get things perfectly right, even when everything is in perfect conditions. So your ability to take the fundamentals that you have learned and apply them and be able to break things down and be able to identify how to fix certain problems is very, very key to mastering. And so once you begin to break down that third step of how to actually like creatively find the problems, find the fundamental aspects of things that are wrong, the next part comes into ingenuity. And that's the last part. This is the mastering part of learning. Once you have acquired the vocabulary, you learn the basics of fundamentals of how to solve and find the problem. And then you get to the third part of being able to fix things that are kind of awry and be able to just look and identify. The fourth one is ingenuity. How do you better the system using the fundamentals thing that you learn? And this is where like the grand money is really being made once you learn something. Because after you have mastered all the things to be able to follow directions and fix things that are wrong, how do you make it better? How do you make that engine go from 25 miles per gallon to 30 miles per gallon? And see, this is the hardest, well, not the hardest part. I think this might be the easiest part because now you have all the fundamentals down. And it's basically just like learning how to kind of grow and build things. So like you can kind of think of it almost like playing piano. I think that piano is a very good template to learn. So like when you learn a piano, you have to learn what the keys are. You got to learn all the basic parts of what a piano is. Learn what keys, the clefs, treble, bass, scales. You learn all those basic things. And the next part is, okay, I got to be able to read music. So I learn how to read music. And the next part is like how to improvise from what you have read, because now you're kind of figuring out how to maybe make this sound a little bit more jazzier. And the last part is, how do I create my own? How do I expand upon the scales? How do I change the keys and mix treble clef and right clef and the bass clef? How do I begin to compose? And see, that's the fun part of the game, is when you get to that part where you know how to compose. So the most valuable skill that you can pretty much acquire is the ability to learn. Once you learn how to learn one thing, you can pretty much learn how to learn anything, because it's all the same thing: vocabulary, basics, fixing things that are wrong, and then ingenuity and engineering your own particular method by which you like to operate. Hopefully that helps somebody out.